You were told the world is simple, follow the rules, smile at the right time, succeed, and you'll be happy. But deep down, you knew. If you played their game too well, you might wake up one day as a stranger to your own soul. Because some people aren't born to walk paved roads, some are born into questions, into longings without names, into an ache that no achievement, no applause, no answer has ever been able to erase. It's not sadness, it's not confusion, it's something deeper, a quiet yearning stitched into the fabric of their being, a voice that says, there must be more than this, but the world doesn't have time for aching souls. The world loves certainty. It rewards clarity, speed, performance. It knows how to measure success, but it does not know how to hold a life built from wonder. They tell you to be realistic. They tell you to harden. They tell you to tame your dreams before the world humiliates you for having them. But what if the toughness they offer is a form of forgetting? What if the dreamers, the sensitive, the slow and questioning ones are not broken? What if they are the ones carrying the blueprints for a world we haven't built yet? This is the story of one of them, of a quiet soul who didn't just want to survive, but needed to understand what it meant to be truly alive. A soul for whom imagination was not a distraction, but a homeland. A soul who, even when the world demanded proof, chose instead to follow the unseen thread pulling them forward. This is not a story of easy answers. It is a story of invisible stars gathered in trembling hands, of wars fought in silence, of a fire carried long before the world noticed its light. And it begins not with a declaration, but with a breath, the kind you take when you step into the unknown, with nothing but hope and an ache too deep to abandon. It begins with the first dangerous decision, to believe that life could mean more than what you've been told. And with that decision, everything changes. Before they had language for it, they had the feeling, the pull behind the ribs when the world grew too sharp, too shallow, the quiet knowing that what was celebrated around them was not enough, not for a soul built to wonder. Even as a child, they could feel it. When the others chased trophies and titles, they chased something else, something they couldn't name but could not stop reaching for. It wasn't rebellion, it wasn't arrogance, it was loyalty. Loyalty to the silent, relentless voice that whispered, there is more. The textbook said, find a goal. The grown-ups said, pick a path. But their heart said something older, something wilder. Find what sets your soul on fire and do not let it go. The voice wasn't loud, it didn't demand attention, it simply waited. Patient, stubborn, unmovable. They tried to ignore it. They tried to drown it in the noise of fitting in. They tried to trade it for belonging, for safety, for a life that made sense on paper. But the ache never left. And over time they realized something dangerous. The world may reward you for betraying your heart, but it will never heal you for doing it. They were not broken for wanting more. They were not wrong for feeling the hollow spaces others ignored. They were simply awake to a truth that most spend their lives trying to forget. That a life built on checkboxes can never fill the places meant for wonder. That meaning is not a bonus you earn for good behavior. It is the very oxygen your soul requires. And yet, knowing the truth is one thing, living it is another. Because every step deeper into the ache meant stepping further away from the maps everyone else trusted. It meant questioning what they had been taught to chase. It meant risking everything for something they couldn't even prove was real. And when the nights grew heavy and the voices of doubt grew louder, one question remained. What if the world is wrong about what matters? What if losing the game is how you actually win your life? The question was the first star. The ache was the compass. But what lay ahead was not a road paved in certainty. It was a wilderness, a place where meaning could not be taken, only created, a place where every step forward would demand the most dangerous thing of all, faith. Not faith in an outcome, faith in their own invisible fire. They were promised that life would make sense. Follow the rules, work hard, stay quiet, dream small, and one day, everything would click into place. The map was clear, the milestones were set, the prize was waiting, or so they were told. So they obeyed, they bent themselves into the shapes demanded of them, they traded questions for certainty, wonder for efficiency, fire for formulas, and for a while it almost worked. There were awards, there were moments of applause, there were fleeting bursts of pride as they climbed each rung of the ladder built by someone else's dreams. But something was wrong. Every milestone reached felt like touching mist. Every victory echoed hollow in the heart. The dream they chased dissolved the closer they got. Success, it turned out, was a mirage. And in the silent aftermath of achievement, a darker thought crept in. What if there is nothing waiting at the end? What if the ache is not a signpost towards something better, but simply who they are? There were nights when they wondered if they were broken, if meaning was a myth sold to keep dreamers distracted, if maybe the hunger for more was a flaw, not a calling, because it is easier to believe you are wrong than to believe the world has lied to you. It is easier to settle for numbness than to live with an unanswered longing. But numbness is its own kind of death, and deep down they knew they could not trade their soul for a seat at a table that never fed them. The pain of staying asleep had finally grown louder than the fear of waking up. They began to understand that arrival was never the point. That meaning is not found at the end of a road someone else built. It's created in the act of walking your own path, even when it's invisible to everyone else. It's built in small acts of rebellion, choosing kindness over cynicism, choosing presence over performance, choosing wonder even when the world rolls its eyes. Meaning is not a prize waiting at the finish line. It is the soil under your feet when you dare to leave the race. It is the stars you gather while everyone else rushes past, too busy chasing illusions to look up. And yet, knowing this did not make the path easier. Because once you leave the road most traveled, the world no longer knows what to do with you. And neither sometimes do you. They stood at the crossroads of all they had been taught and all they could not ignore. One path promised comfort, the other promised nothing, except the terrifying freedom to become who they truly were. And in that terrifying freedom, a new question was born. Would they risk being lost to finally be found? The answer would demand everything. And it would begin with facing the one part of themselves they had spent their whole life trying to outrun. No one tells you that the search for meaning will eventually lead you here face to face with everything you have hidden, everything you have denied, everything you were too afraid to love, the shadow. It does not come to destroy you. It comes to show you who you are beneath the performance. It comes to break the mirrors you have been trained to hold up to the world, hoping for approval. It comes to remind you that wholeness was never about being perfect. It was always about being real. The shadow carries the parts you abandoned to survive, the dreams you dismissed as childish, the wildness you traded for acceptance, the tenderness you armored over to avoid being broken. Piece by piece, you left yourself behind because the world taught you that sensitivity is weakness, that hope is naive, that imagination is irresponsible, but the price of exile is steep. You can only outrun yourself for so long before the emptiness swallows you whole. They met their shadow not in grand defeat, but in the quiet humiliation of realizing they had betrayed their own heart in small, daily ways, by smiling when they wanted to scream, by staying silent when their soul cried out, by shrinking themselves to fit into spaces never meant to hold them. It is a brutal thing to see yourself clearly for the first time, but it is also the beginning of freedom. Carl Jung wrote, "Only the paradox comes anywhere near to comprehending the fullness of life." And here the paradox stands undeniable. That to reclaim their light, they had to first embrace their darkness, not as an enemy to be conquered, but as an orphaned part of themselves waiting to be welcomed home. They realized the ache was never a flaw, it was the alarm clock of the soul. The unbearable longing was not a mistake. It was the sacred map out of numbness. The search for meaning had never been about finding a perfect life. It was about remembering the pieces they had been taught to hate and daring to love them anyway. The shadow is not the end of the journey. It is the gate, the place where masks are shattered and the real pilgrimage begins. The place where you stop trying to be good enough for the world and start being true enough for your own soul. The world may never reward you for this kind of courage, but meaning doesn't need the world's permission. It only needs yours. And in the ruins of everything false, something new flickered to life. A fire that could not be bought, a flame that would not be extinguished. The real journey was just beginning, and this time they would not walk it as a stranger to themselves. There is a moment after the collapse, after the masks have shattered and the easy answers have burned away, when you are left standing in a silence so deep it almost feels like death. But it isn't death. It's the sound of something beginning. Not the beginning you planned for, not the one the world wrote scripts about. A raw, trembling beginning built not from ambition or certainty, but from survival. From something too stubborn, too sacred, to be extinguished. A fire, not the fire they show in stories where heroes charge into battle with banners flying. This fire starts smaller, quieter, in the bruised part of you that refused to go numb, in the place where the ache lived too long to be ignored, in the broken chambers of the heart that still dared to beat. You didn't ask for this fire. You didn't light it through strategy or success. It lit itself the day you decided to stay loyal to yourself, even when it cost you everything the world told you mattered. And now it burns without permission. It burns when you choose honesty over acceptance, when you choose wonder over cynicism, when you choose to sit with your own unanswered longing and call it sacred instead of shameful. The fire grows every time you gather invisible stars while others chase medals and noise. It grows every time you refuse to betray your tenderness for the sake of fitting in. It grows every time you plant seeds in darkness, not knowing if you'll ever see them bloom. They tried to sell you the myth that meaning would be handed to you once you proved yourself worthy. But the truth is brutal and beautiful. Meaning isn't given, it's made. It's stitched together from the small, defiant acts of staying true, when compromise would have been easier. It's born in the invisible victories the world will never applaud. And still, the fire grows. Not because the world feeds it, but because you stopped needing it to. This fire will not roar for attention. It will not demand trophies. It simply burns, unstoppable, unashamed, because you have become the keeper of something no one else can define, no one else can measure, no one else can take away. And as the world rushes past in its glittering, hollow parade, you will stand quietly at the edge of it all, carrying a flame they cannot see, a flame they cannot name, but a flame that has already changed everything, because once you have built your life from the pieces you were told to abandon, once you have honored the ache instead of running from it, you become something more dangerous and more beautiful than anyone expected. You become whole, and whole souls set fires that no storm can put out. At first, you think the search is about finding something out there, the right path, the right calling, the right set of circumstances where your soul will finally feel at home. You think meaning is a destination hidden at the end of a long and winding road. But the longer you walk, the more you realize meaning isn't a place you reach, it's a way you walk. It's how you carry yourself through the unknown. It's the invisible weight you lift each time you refuse to abandon yourself. It's the way you choose to live even when the world offers easy alternatives. You become the meaning when you stop asking for permission to matter, when you stop waiting for applause to validate the quiet revolutions happening inside you, when you decide that your longing, your dreaming, your way of seeing beauty in broken places is not a mistake to be fixed, but a gift to be guarded. You become the meaning every time you show up in a world that taught you to disappear. You become the meaning every time you choose presence over perfection, tenderness over armor, creation over cynicism. The world may never recognize it. They may never give you the gold stars or the blue ribbons or the sparkling words of approval. But you will know in the way your chest softens when you tell the truth, in the way your hands move without fear when you build something that matters to you, in the way your eyes see beauty where others only see brokenness. You're not chasing the stars anymore. You are becoming the light you once thought you had to find. The path you thought you had to discover was inside you the entire time. And though the world may still be loud with its demands and dazzling with its distractions, there will be a place inside you that remains untouched by it all. A place where the invisible stars you gathered still glow. A place where the fire you didn't ask for still burns. A place where you remember, you are not here to perform. You are not here to impress. You are not here to arrive. You are here to live, to create, to wonder, to love, to leave behind a trail of light for the others still searching in the dark. If you are one of us, the ones who have carried invisible stars across lonely fields, who have dared to believe in the unseen, then don't walk this path alone. Join us. Subscribe. Share your light. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more souls who remember how to glow in the dark. And you are already shining brighter than you know.